And now we'll turn and recognize Ms. Castor from the state of Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all very much for your testimony today. I hear a lot from students and young entrepreneurs, and they're very motivated these days to enter a green jobs field. What is your best advice for a young person? What should they be studying in school? How should they be preparing? Where are the opportunities today for those jobs?
I would love to start. We have a real issue in this country in terms of math and science education. And this doesn't just apply to the new economy, the new energy economy. It applies to all of the work that we must do as utilities to keep our own systems reliable. So I would have to say off the top that if you're having that conversation, if anyone has the aptitude or the interest to pursue science and engineering, speaking as a retired lawyer, I can offer great respect for mathematicians, for scientists, for engineers. But beyond that, of course, I think what is really significant is that the educational institutions that we now meet with and talk to, they are designing these programs in terms of design, architecture, engineering, science. It's very difficult for us to know what we're going to need. The Bipartisan Action Group is meeting again tomorrow on this very issue, trying to figure out what sorts of needs they will have in terms of personnel. Don't forget also the average age of an employee within our company is very close to 50. So when you talk to these people, remind them that there's an entire generation of energy providers who are very close to retirement. So I think there's a pretty broad scope open to them.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a great one. It's incredibly important to not limit the scope of the notion of what a green job is. Ideally, we'd love to see jobs in inventing, making, installing, using, maintaining, operating all of these systems here in this country, and that's a huge range of occupations and a huge range of areas and sectors. It's one of the reasons it's been hard to count the jobs, because they're so diverse across so many sectors. I think I would agree that math and science are critical not just for engineering, but what we're hearing from the folks, our union partners who are running apprenticeship programs in electrical and in the building trades, is they also need folks to come in with basic math and science. It's an incredibly important skill. I would also just reiterate what I said earlier, that many of these jobs are jobs that don't need a four-year degree. And while we want our young people who are interested, all the young people who are interested and excited about going to a four-year college should be able to do that. But not all young people are in that category. There's 150,000 dropouts last year in California. The Gates Foundation surveyed them and found 80% of them said if they had had job experience while in school, they would have stayed in school. And that's an incredibly important statistic, and I think we do need to give opportunities to folks who want to go into the trades, opportunities to folks who want to be building, hands-on building these systems that we're talking about.
As one of the mainstream sort of new renewable industries.
Turn on the microphone, please.
Am I on? Okay, now I am. We represent both the people involved in manufacturing of wind turbines, and there's over 8,000 parts in a wind turbine, as well as those people that develop the wind farm. So we deal with both. So what we've been trying to do and are doing through our education committee is developing curriculum that will provide the job training and working with a number of educational institutions, junior colleges, VOTEC schools, as well as four-year colleges, to develop the breadth of training that will be necessary for these jobs. We have at our wind power conference that will be in Chicago, Illinois, the first week in May, we will have approximately 20,000 people attending that conference. We have one of the days of the conference set aside for young people and for people in academics who want to come in and meet the 1,200 exhibitors who are manufacturers, supply chain folks, as well as developers, to talk with job possibilities, and we are there to talk with them as well. So contact us. We're putting together an internship program. We are all about the jobs and the people.
And I have another question. It's a bit broader. You know, last week the Environmental Protection Agency issued its proposed endangerment finding that follows on the U.S. Supreme Court decision that says EPA has a legal authority and obligation to regulate greenhouse gases. And, you know, if the Congress, if we can't get it together and pass a cap and trade or an energy bill here, it will probably be left to EPA to regulate it. What would that do to green jobs initiatives and to your growing industries?
Again, if I could open, I think we have a strong preference, which is one of the reasons we're very pleased to be included in this panel. We have a strong preference for a legislative response which can provide the kind of flexibility and the investment opportunities that make sense. We're a very large company. We're a very large industry, all of us collectively. Our preference would be that we come up with a regime, or that you come up with a regime which we can, a set of rules that we can live by and drive the right kind of investments. So Mass versus EPA, we're very familiar with that case. We're very familiar with the work of the EPA in terms of regulating what we do as power generators. Our preference would be that we come up with, or that you come up with, a set of rules that will really address this problem. We're very anxious to get on with it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Gentlelady's time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Upton.
Mr. Manning, we sort of chuckled back here when you said you were very glad to be on this panel. If I were you, I would have asked to have been on panel 2 or 3. I have just a couple questions, and hopefully will not take my full 5 minutes. Ms. Pena, you talked about the Blue-Green Coalition and how broad it is, which was exciting to hear. I'm a supporter of a renewable portfolio standard. Obviously, the question is what is in the details, what's in the base. I'm one that happens to believe that hydro ought to be in there, both old and new. Waste to energy, I think, is very important. We see that in my district. Gas line runs right through a landfill, and they provide gas heat or gas for, I believe, 1,200 homes a day from the methane produced from that. I'm a supporter of nuclear, and that is my question for you. We have 2 nuclear plants in my district. We had the unfortunate incident last fall of having a turbine lose a blade and it was destroyed. And there are now 500 folks working to repair that turbine. As you can imagine, it's pretty big. That turbine was made in Germany because we turned the switch from green to red on nuclear. We've lost a lot of jobs. Among, I think in your coalition, you talked about the steel workers. When my 2 plants were built, 85% of the components of those 2 plants were built in this country. Because we've not turned on a new plant in a couple of decades, 85% of the components are now made someplace else, as we've seen with this turbine. Would your organization support nuclear with no greenhouse gas emissions as part of a renewable portfolio standard?
We do not have a position on nuclear energy.
But we might be able to convince you.
Various organizations have varying positions
on
the issue.
I just know that the steelworkers, I believe they're supportive of that, right? Well, I don't know. It would be great if you could go back to them, because this would really create tens of thousands of jobs if we're able to do that. Knowing my time is running out, I'm going to not use all my time. Ms. Bodie, a question that I've been asking my crew for a long time, and maybe you know the answer. This proposal, the draft bill, has a 25% standard by 25. Obviously, a lot of that is wind. Unlike some people from Massachusetts, I actually support wind in water. Lake Michigan, though I don't, maybe Mr. Manning, I don't know whether you support it off Nantucket or not. Do you? You do. Do you hear that, Mr. Markey? He supports wind off Nantucket. Maybe you'll be delegated to panel 5 next time.
How about wind in Lake Michigan?
I just said that I support that.
Oh, you do? Okay,
I do.
good.
I do. I do
Excellent,
support that.
excellent.
The question, though, that I have for you, Ms. Bodie, is we have some of those green jobs that we talked about. In my district, we actually make the cap, which weighs 32,000 pounds, on the 80-meter wind turbines. Good jobs in a little town in my district. Now, they provide, if we end up going to 25%, I don't know what the wind component of that will be. I would guess, 10 to 15 maybe, if we don't include nuclear?
Yes, sir.
How much, knowing that today it's less than 1% wind, how much space in America do we need for, how many wind turbines do we need at 80 meters tall? Because they're the most efficient, right?
Actually, they're actually going up to 100 feet now.
Okay.
Well, they're
Well, 80 meters, that's pretty, but in
Yeah,
essence, how much space do we need? Land space do we need?
right now there are 35 states that are producing, that have wind turbines and wind generation in terms of producing wind. In terms of the space to do that, I think, I haven't measured it in terms of half of a state or part of a state, but I think the footprint is probably less important in the fact
Well,
that
do
a
we need
wind turbine put up on land continues to allow the land to have multiple uses. And in fact, and that's, in some respects, that's very different than all other forms of generation.
But how close do you put these 80-meter jobs together?
Well, let's put it this way. In Germany, they have 20% penetration, and I think they're very comfortable with the amount of wind turbines they have put up in their country. The same thing with Italy, France, and it's a much smaller space.
Again, remember, I'm a
United
supporter.
States.
I mean,
Yes.
do we need the size of Iowa? Do we need the size of, I mean, how much space do we need to generate 10 to 15% of our energy from wind?
I have no idea.
All right.
Well, I mean, but the point is that
Can you
you're not
find out and
taking
get
land
back?
out
If
of
the gentleman would yield, I've got some stats.
I tell you what, the gentleman's time has expired, and I can recognize the gentleman from, if the gentleman wouldn't mind, I can recognize the gentleman from Illinois on his own time.
Then I'm not going to use my stats. That's my question.
Well, and I've got the answer to his question. My brilliant staffer, who has a lot more statistics than I do at his fingertips, if I could answer.
Sure.
Apparently, it is actual land use is 2 to 5% of the land covered, which is less than half of the area of Anchorage, Alaska. So onshore land use would be approximately 12.3 million acres, but of course, in almost every case, that land has continued to be multiple use.
Okay, understand it. Thank you. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Let me just add to that then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Take a steel mill that uses 545 million kilowatts per year. It would require roughly 138 wind turbines on roughly 12,443 acres of land for a total output. However, during peak load at that steel mill, it requires 100,000 kilowatts. For that, you would need roughly 825 turbines on 33,000 acres of land to account for peak load. This wind panacea is just scary. The president in his inaugural address said we will run our factories, manufacturing factories, on wind and solar. Dr. Seuss couldn't write a better line. That is irresponsible. Baseload generation will always be major traditional electricity generation, whether that's coal or that's nuclear power or it's going to be major hydro. Now, renewables can help, and I'm probably one of the few members who climbed a wind turbine, Mr. Chairman. I know you'd be shocked that I actually climbed one during my break. I encourage everybody to visit coal-fired power plants or coal mines. I also did climb all the way up to the top of the turbine and got a good tour of that. So we're not anti this, but for people to propose that we're going to solve our electricity problems and stay competitive worldwide on wind and solar are being very disingenuous. And so that's why part of our debate is in this bill, which has a gaping hole, which is the credit allocation. Are you all comfortable with the fact that there are some folks cutting backroom deals on the credit allocations and that we are not here discussing the allocation of those credits right now? Ms. Pena?
If I could.
No, I asked Ms. Pena first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for.
Real quickly, I've only got 2:40 and the chairman's
Good, and
hot on time.
And that question will be answered. And obviously, we're having a lot of discussions on it. We need to.
So you're part of the backroom deals too?
Well,
Yes?
No. I mean, obviously, the chairman has.
No, there's deals being cut right now. So if you're not back there, you better get back there, because folks are negotiating these credits. Now, we should be discussing these credits out here in the open so that we can then also score them. So, do you think we should have those out for everyone to see so we can address the benefits?
I believe we need allocations and we need to invest.
How about transparency?
Manufacturing.
How about transparency? Y'all are for transparency, aren't you?
There is transparency in this process, sir.
There is. So can you tell me the credit allocation right now?
It's being discussed.
And who's discussing it?
The chairman, the various constituents.
In the back rooms. In the back room, which I've not been invited to yet. That's not dealing and helping me on coal production and electricity generation.
I can only answer what we believe. And we
Mr. Manning?
Our position has been very public in terms of allocation. We believe that
Should there be, let me ask this question on my time, should there be 100% auction? Ms. Pena, yes or no? 100% auction? Yes or no?
We need to continue to discuss that.
we need to move promptly to
100% auction, yes or no?
ultimately, yes.
Yes. Ms. Bodie, 100% auction. Should we have 100% auction? Ms. Bodie?
I don't know what's being discussed in the back rooms. I'm sorry.
No, the question is, should we have 100% auction of credits?
Oh, okay.
The question is, should we have 100% auction of credits? Aren't these important questions? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What, did you invite the panel here?
I don't think there should be 100%.
No, I'm asking the panel that you've invited.
Hey, please.
Should they be answering? Should there be 100% auction of credits?
I don't know the answer to your question.
Okay. Next.
I think our alliance hasn't come to a specific position on this, but we definitely believe there needs to be a transition period where
Mr. Ackerman, please. Should there be 100%?
Ultimately, yes.
Someone.
But there needs to be a transition period that includes some allocations, and we need to make sure we invest auction proceeds back into the clean energy economy.
Mr. Ackerman.
Well, I'm in favor of 100% auction, and I'm
Thank you.
transparency in making these deals. I think the question of is there transitional assistance needed is a separable question.
Right. But we should be discussing these credits.
Yeah.
If we move to a markup of a bill on Tuesday and we don't have the credit allocation, that will pose a question, Mr. Chairman, one that you asked in past energy bills, of who's writing the bill in the back room. And with that, I yield back my time.
I thank the gentleman very much, and I thank all the members of the committee for this historically long hearing. And you don't hear many witnesses ever say, thank you for inviting me this evening to testify. This is one of our witnesses.
Mr. Markey?
Yes.
I just wanted a point of personal privilege. I wanted to share the fact that my brother and sister-in-law are here from Carlisle, Massachusetts.
Where are they, please? I would love to see them, and welcome from Carlisle.
And this is the first congressional hearing they've ever been to, and so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew.
Hopefully
that
they
were
weren't here at 10.
Carlisle is like the aristocracy of Massachusetts, so thank you so much for being here today, and your sister-in-law did a fantastic job here today. Tomorrow morning, by the way, our first hearing is on the allocation policies of carbon credits in order to assist and benefit consumers, and we will have 7 witnesses beginning at 9:30 tomorrow morning to begin the discussion of carbon credits and its implementation in a way that will protect consumers in America. Again, we thank all of you for your patience today and for your tremendous contributions to this process. Thank you. This hearing is adjourned.